Okay, what's up, Carolina Fandom? Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Hasley. I'm joined by John Chapman of the 49ers Rush podcast, as well as Eat Sleep Fantasy. He's an NFL insider, specifics on the NFL draft. John, it's good to have you. We've talked before back with, talking more on the fantasy side. But now I want to talk about the NFL draft. But before we get into that, I just kind of want to let people know, yes, this is a Carolina themed show. However, this show in particular is more about learning about the draft prospects and which ones are that John likes, as far as like the top pick, the top 3 picks of a certain position, kind of going through there and, how that will play out. We'll talk about Carolina. We will. But for the most part, it's more about the prospects. So, John, how are you, buddy?
Man, I'm exceptional. Very glad to be on the show. Big fan of yours. Love the work that you put in. And, as somebody that covers a specific team, I have the 49ers. I really do feel that it's, these specific podcasts like yours, Carolina Fandom and things. If you want to dive into the nuts and bolts, I love this. So it's going to be a lot of fun to get a different perspective and kind of bounce back and forth. But the draft, we're 6 days away. And good Lord, there is nothing that we need more right now than some sports, even though there's not going to be anybody playing sports. This could not come at a better time for me personally, or I think a lot of sports fans. So very, very excited about this next week.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Even though the draft is going to be a lot different than what we've seen in the past, and the interesting thing is that this was supposed to be in Las Vegas, and there was supposed to be this huge event. I heard that it was going to be in the fountain of the Bellagio Hotel, and that the players were actually going to be boated to the stage. This whole pomp and circumstance thing. And now we're not going to have that. What's really quick? What's your opinion on what do you think we're going to see and how that's going to be received?
Well, a couple things. It's going to be weird. I've been to the last 6 drafts. And so the draft is one of my favorite times of the year. It's kind of how I got started writing and podcasting, was covering the draft. So I had my tickets. I was really, really excited and all that stuff. It all got refunded, canceled, which is a bummer. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be interesting because one, not only are people going to be apart from each other, but now you have ABC, ESPN, and the NFL Network teaming up. There's only going to be one broadcast, and it's going to be the same on all those channels. So that's going to be weird. And then you've got Roger Goodell in his basement announcing the picks. So,
yes.
I mean, we're just to a new level of craziness.
There's no huge big handshakes or chest bumps to Roger Goodell this year, but it's going to be interesting. And the fact that we haven't had sports in so long, as it seems, this is going to be a nice break, a nice respite for our lack of sports. I mean, I used to hate even like the day before and the day after the MLB All-Star game because there's no sports then. Yep. Now this is like even it's 100 times worse. But getting into the draft preview here, let's just talk a little bit about number 1 pick. Everyone's thinking it's going to be Joe Burrow to Cincinnati. We've got your rankings of your players by each position. You have Burrow number 1. Some people are a little bit, they're thinking that he's more of a system quarterback with LSU. Joe Brady may have been a big part of his success. He's a little bit older in terms of age. I think he'll be 20? Is he 23 now? He will be 24 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because he went through the transfer portal and all that stuff. Yeah,
correct. So talk about Joe Burrow. What makes him special, and why is he your number 1 quarterback pick? As a lot of people, he is. But there's some people who are a little bit on the fence, and I'm wondering if Cincinnati is actually. If they take Burrow, are they taking him because he's the best player available, or is it more of a need because they need a quarterback and they're done with Andy Dalton?
Right. And they need a lot of things. But here's the thing with Joe Burrow. He has all of the things that you cannot measure. He is 6'3", 220, so he's got some size and he's got a decent mobility. I wish he would have tested a little bit more at the combine just so we could have seen, how his athletic profile measured up against other quarterbacks. But the things that make him so special, and whenever you watch game film, whether you're watching, the All-22 coaches film, or you're just watching a broadcast live game itself, there's so many times where you just say, man, how'd he get out of that? And, he's just clutch, a competitor at every single situation. And he just has that it factor. I go off of a whole list for each position based off of Bill Walsh's scouting profiles that he developed way back in the day. And, one of the things that's most important, so number two thing for Bill Walsh, pocket presence.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate through the pocket, through pressure and all those things? And he has that in spades. So if you're playing behind a bad offensive line, you're going to have to figure some things out. And he's just a guy that just doesn't get rattled. And as the situation kind of ramps up, he elevates past that. So yeah, Joe Burrow, he's special. He's going to go number one. And I actually don't think Cincinnati's a really bad place to go from a kind of supporting cast standpoint. AJ Green's there, John Ross, he's a speed guy, but whatever. Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and they're getting back their first round pick last year who didn't take one snap, Jonah Williams, offensive tackle from Alabama.
That's right. You kind of forget about that. He didn't play any time, and he was their tackle pick. So yeah, good point there. All right. So talking about Burrow, that's good. I mean, he obviously had, what was it, the best quarterback statistically speaking, year in LSU. What is 60 touchdowns? That's just insane. But
you look at the turnovers or lack thereof. That's what makes it so crazy. I mean, he's the number one all-time completion percentage in the SEC 1 year of starting.
Yeah, and that's against SEC defenses, and that's against teams that you're playing to beat LSU. Like that's your championship game. Yep. But and he can also run, which is a characteristic that people tend to forget about, and that also might be part of LSU's offense. But he's capable. All right, let's move on to your next quarterback in the ranking there, Tua Tagovailoa. I can never say that. Any doubts at all for you? I kind of heard about some GMs who are saying, you know what, he's not passing our physical, or he's not passing our eye test in terms of, is he healthy enough for us? I don't know if that's smokescreen. I don't know if that's just talk at this stage of the game here, where teams are just saying whatever to perhaps create the wrong scent here. But what's your opinion? You have him ranked number 2. Is he ready? And if he is, what can we expect from him from the team that drafts him?
So I do tiered rankings. So I do the whole big board 1 through, I did 130 players that I watched at least 3 complete game films on that I ranked. I've watched a lot more players, but anyway, having said that, I have Tua closer to Burrow than I do the other quarterbacks, Herbert and Jordan Love. I love Tua. And the things that kind of separate Tua from the other guys, one, his accuracy is great. His deep ball accuracy, not as much. Mm-hmm. But, passes that are, that 10 to 20 yard mark, he hits everyone and he spins the ball perfectly. Now, when you talk about Tua, you have to talk about Tua off the field as well, because you're talking about a guy that's probably going to be a Walter Payton Award winner before his career's over. So from a leadership and lead by example and just, overall hard worker, he's going to be the hardest working quarterback in the NFL day one. He was the same way at Alabama whenever he first got there. A lot of people forget he was at the same high school as Marcus Mariota. And so they knew each other growing up, and he's seen what it takes to get to this point. And so I really do think that Tua is great. Now, the health issue, it's a red flag for sure. And this is probably the worst year ever for it to happen to somebody, because he cannot go through a physical. Now, if you remember when the very first video he sent out there of him working around and throwing the ball, that was the first day after he was cleared to run from the doctor who did his surgery. That was day 1. And so this guy seems ready to go. And again, if you're picking a quarterback, let's say you're Miami, the Chargers, Cincinnati, whomever, you're not going to be competing in year 1 anyway. So even if he's not fully healthy and isn't going to be able to go to start the season, if we do have a start to the season, your team is building for the future, and Tua is going to be that guy. I personally think Washington should take him with the second pick, but I don't think that they will. But that's what they should do.
I kind of agree with that. And if that happens, then the draft just becomes interesting, right? Because then Chase Young comes down, And, then Detroit says, well, we can either take him, which they probably will, or they're going to field offers from a lot of different teams who could say, hey, we'll give you this, this, and this. You give us Chase Young.
Yeah.
That's going to be the fun part there. But that's some interesting talk about Tua, especially his. You said, kind of like the it factor of a player who's going to come in, work hard. I mean, everybody wants that. GMs want that. That's the difference between Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, right?
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, the only concern I have is just that hip. Especially thinking about Bo Jackson, and his injury. Granted, it's 20-something years later, but there's still that little bit of concern there, and I don't know, but that's just my take. Sticking with quarterbacks here, you like Jordan Love. In fact, you like him more than you do Justin Herbert, which is interesting. That's a hot take. Talk to us a little bit about your love for Mr. Love.
So the quarterback position's crazy, as we all know, and it's got like a 50% bust rate with quarterbacks in the first round. So I get that. But in today's NFL, we have seen teams that gambled with high upside quarterbacks pay off. You're talking Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson. Those are the guys, these high upside guys. And so whenever I'm looking at Jordan Love and Justin Herbert, they're two very differing players because Jordan Love has this crazy high ceiling. He's got the arm talent. He's got a little bit of wiggle. He ran a 4.7. But there's so many plays whenever you watch him, you just say, whoa, all right, like something just happened. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you're watching Justin Herbert's film, it's the exact opposite. Yeah, he's big. Yeah, he's fast. Yeah, he's smart. He's got all those things. But the killer mindset is just null and void. He does not have it. Outside of the Rose Bowl, which the Rose Bowl, his last game at the college level was his best game. So that was great. But, we were talking about Justin Herbert a full year ago, because if he would have came out in the 2019 class, he would have been a first round pick anyway.
Right.
But he went back.
Plus his stats in 2018, I think were a little bit better.
Yes, they were. And so there's just so many times you're watching him in the games on the line, he disappears. Like where you have Joe Burrow, like always ascending past what's needed. Herbert is the opposite. You go back and you watch that Auburn game, week 0 for the college football season, which was an awesome game, Oregon versus Auburn. And just when the game mattered and whenever he could win it, he just does not have those moments. And that's huge for me at the quarterback position, because if you're looking at, Mahomes or whatever down, 10 points in the Super Bowl and just goes ham, like that's what you have to have in today's NFL. And I just not sure Justin Herbert can have. I like Herbert, but I would prefer somebody like Jordan Love with a high ceiling personally.
Is there any specific, I know this is kind of difficult, right? But is there any specific?
Oh, I like difficult.
Is there any specific comparison that you can make? And 2-part question, is there a particular team or a coach that you think that he would work really well with?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so first off, just my comparisons that I put. And again, I put together, this is my 7th draft book that I've put out. Again, 130 player profile stats, all that kind of stuff, big board. And I do an NFL draft style big board where you can see that as well.
And by the way, can I interrupt you?
Yes, of course.
Where can we get that? Where can we see that?
Yeah, the best way to get that is just patreon.com. It's just $8. It's $8. Just go to patreon.com, type in 49ers Rush Podcast. You just click to join there. Join the Frank Gore tier, which is $8, and you can download that there, and you can end your membership right there, right after that. That's fine. Or you can see all the draft videos and stuff that I've got a lot of video breakdowns on there of all the draft, and you get access to everything. So it's just $8, and I promise you're going to like it. If you don't like it, you can email me and I will refund your money. Awesome. And also I will say this, if you are somebody out there that perhaps your income has slowed because of the way the economy is now with the coronavirus and all that, just email me and I'll send it to you for free. It's awesome. Not really about the money. I want to get it out there to people so they can see it. And the draft, this is awesome time. I want to share that. So if you want to, just email me 49ersrushpodcast@gmail.com. I'll send it to you for free. But anyway, so talking about player comps, these are my 2 comps that I put out there for Jordan Love. and Justin Herbert. I compare Jordan Love to Donovan McNabb at Syracuse, but less consistent. Love had a bad 2019, and a lot of it was he lost his offensive coordinator. He lost 9 starters. Only him and one other guy returned on offense, and his play went down. Justin Herbert, Josh Freeman from Kansas State. He reminds me so much of him, the good and the bad. He has all the measurables. He can do it all. It's just something's not there.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I have a feeling that I have a feeling New England's going to take a quarterback in this draft. I think they kind of have to,
I'm
right?
with you.
Are you thinking that they're going to target either Love or Herbert?
Man, they have so many picks. I think they have 12 picks in this draft. And so they don't have a lot of, high-end drafts, but they can make a lot of trades. And I guarantee you this, if one of these 4 fall, and I don't even think they have to fall that far. New England, they're picking 23. Mm-hmm. Cleveland is kind of the sweet spot, number 10. They've already come out and said they want to trade back. Okay. Cleveland wants to trade back. I think the Tampa Bay Bucks want to trade back. So, Cleveland at 10, Tampa Bay at 14. I think that those are some realistic trading spots for the Patriots to jump up if one of these 4 guys fall. But I don't think that they're going to. I really do think that they're going to go early.
Well, that's what we're going to find out. And last year we had a record number of trades in the draft, if I'm not mistaken. And the question is, are we going to have something similar to that this year, or are we going to have fewer trades because of the whole situation? With GMs having to, be on a conference call.
They came out today and said the NFL. They said that they have put it in place where they can pause the draft if something goes wrong or a trade is taking longer than normal to process. Wow. That is great news because everybody wants trades. So let's just hit that freaking stop button.
That's
and just
true.
Time out.
So there's not going to be any Minnesota Vikings forgot to put their pick in. Anyway, Panthers fans remember that. That's how they got Jordan Gross.
Yeah, that's right. Wow, yeah, that's right. That's a good little trivia piece right there.
Little tidbit, yes. You know what? I want to jump ahead and go and talk about the tackle positions here because I think there's probably going to be at least 4, maybe 5, could be even 6 tackles taken in the first round.
Yeah.
Is there a standout tackle in your opinion? Because you hear about, you've got Tristan Wirfs, you've got Mekhi Becton, Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas. Is there a particular guy that stands out to you? And are you thinking that we're probably going to see a couple tackles go in the first 10 picks, first 5 picks?
You should. You should. But now here's the problem. It's what's your flavor, okay? So, again, I cover the 49ers. They want a zone blocking scheme, and they're not the biggest fans of the bigger-bodied O-linemen. So Mekhi Becton, who I love out of Louisville, who's just a mammoth of a man, 6'7", 364 pounds, and none of that is bad weight either. Like, he's in shape. So, like, if you want your, the old power run games and stuff like that, like, if you look at John Gruden, he's going to love Mekhi Becton, but they don't need a tackle. It just depends on what it is that you want. If you're looking for athleticism and size, Jedrick Wills from Alabama is going to be your guy. If you want the tried and true with the best body of work, it's got to be Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. He's the very first freshman tackle to ever start for Kirk Ferentz. And if you look at the tackles that have come through Iowa, there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I like that guy a lot. And man, what's interesting? Andrew Thomas, you're talking about picking your flavor and all that stuff. If you run a zone blocking scheme, Andrew Thomas, I think, is going to be your number 1 tackle in this class. So you've got these 4 guys, and then there's a whole giant second tier. Ezra Cleveland, Isaiah Wilson, the tackle opposite of, Andrew Thomas. There's so many guys that you're going to be able to get in the first and second round that I really do think that you could see 6 guys go in the first round.
Yeah, Austin Jackson too is another one. Josh Jones that people are talking about. Ezra Cleveland. I mean, that there's just names.
Yeah.
That a lot of people are. Of course, we're getting closer to the draft, so the names are becoming more popular as they're being talked about. But
And you said Austin Jackson. I think
Mhm.
he's interesting because he is a guy that I think has the highest ceiling of any of the offensive tackles in this class. The problem is he's still very, very raw. He's not developed. He's 6'5", 322, but he's not built physically. A little side story here. He had to donate bone marrow for his sister who was battling cancer. Well, he had to do that in the off season, 6 weeks before the season started, and he had to be under quarantine because of infections and all that stuff, and he wasn't allowed to work out. So this is a guy, very, very young as well. But if you're just talking athletic profile of what he could be, this is a guy that's probably going to go late first, early second. You could look back and this guy could be an all-pro tackle. His ceiling is huge, but if you're a team that wants to win now, might not be your poison now.
Yeah, that's great take too. But that also shows kind of his character as well. That he would put his sister's health above his NFL draft prospect. So I mean, not necessarily he's not burning that bridge, but he's just kind of taking some time off to make sure that he handles that, which is I'm sure a lot of GMs would like to see that. Yeah. Jumping ahead, because I want to talk about cornerbacks. This is definitely a position that Carolina is in need after losing James Bradbury in the offseason. Talk to me about your cornerbacks. Obviously, everybody likes Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, and I see you do as well. But
he's so clean. He's just clean.
Yeah, and the fact that he didn't have a single penalty against him over the year, that's really impressive. When you think about all of the ticky-tack holding calls or pass interference that he may have. I mean, I can't even fathom that, to be honest. But,
it's pretty crazy what he did. And that's the thing. You look at these teams and certain colleges. I don't like uniform scouting. But I do like coaches. You know what I mean? Yep. And so again, Kirk Ferentz can coach offensive linemen better than other people can. So because you're an offensive lineman for Iowa, you're going to see certain traits. And the same thing can be said about, DBs at Ohio State. Even though they changed a lot of their coaching staff, they have put out so much talent. Whenever you watch Okudah, he doesn't give up separation. He just doesn't give up separation, and teams don't test him very often.
Right.
But he only allowed a 45% passer rating when being targeted. That's pretty dang good.
Any pro comp for him at all that you have? I mean, are we talking Deion Sanders here, Darius Slay? Where does he fall? Richard Sherman? What can we expect kind of from Okudah?
So here's the thing, and the one knock on him, okay, is ball skills. He doesn't have the ball skills. So he's a coverage corner guy, and he can play in every system. You could put him in, single high safety, cover 3, Tampa 2, man, doesn't matter. He can do it all, but he's not the type of guy that's going to go out and get 6 or 7 picks. That's not who he is. He's much more to a shutdown kind of corner guy. He just doesn't have the ball skills. So my player comp for him is without the ball skills, because he doesn't have that. He is a Deion attitude, and he will get up in your face and talk and jaw and all that stuff, just without ball skills. But coverage ability, it's up there. Now his speed is good. 4.48 was his official time, so that's good. It's a check off the box. He's kind of the saying, jack of all trades, ace of none. He's a king of all trades, ace of none. But the coverage ability is there. He's just not going to get you interceptions. It's just not what he does. He's going to force the opposing quarterback to throw it to somebody else.
No, that makes sense. And we also saw that with Deion. I mean, he would take away half of the field. That makes sense for sure. Since we're talking about Ohio State, and I'll get into some of these other corners, but is there anything that you can talk about in terms of Damon Arnett, his teammate? What kind of a player is he? And I mean, he's probably like a second round grade, would you say?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And would not be surprised if he goes at the end of the first. There's a lot of teams that are very corner needy right now. And you guys, particularly, even if you don't go cornerback early, which I think there's a better than I think there's a really good chance you guys are going corner. But if you don't go corner at 7, 38 is going to be an awesome spot for you as well there. Now, Damon Arnett, he played opposite He's a 3-year starter. He actually started longer than Okudah did. He was starting before him, and he's just calm and smooth at all times. He's never flustered. He's not the type of corner that's, spring loaded and you see him shot out of a cannon. He's always where he needs to be. Route recognition is through the charts, and he's just an anticipation corner that knows what's going on. Big film guy, and just clean. But again, you look at him, he did run a 4.56, which, I bring the 40 up. The 40 is the most important for the cornerback position above any other position in the NFL.
In terms of like draftability, like first round versus second round, that kind of thing. Is that why? If he had a 4.48 or 4.44, or like right around in there, kind of a little like Okudah, would you say that he would be a first rounder?
Probably not.
It's tough.
The ball skills just not there still. But he's very, very close, and he's right there on the fringe of it. This is an awesome corner class. It's really, really good. And so because of that, the issue of scarcity isn't really there. So there's a huge clump of corners, that are in this tier because, we went over, the top guy, but Trayvon Diggs, AJ Terrell, Jalen Johnson, Damon Arnett, Jeff Gladney, Bryce Hall. You have all these guys that are that talented, and they're all kind of grouped together. So it's kind of, what do you want? Do you want the tall, athletic guy? That's not going to be Damon Arnett. He's 6 foot, so he's in between. He's not a speed guy, but he's not too slow either. He doesn't do a lot of press, but he likes to mirror and match at the line of scrimmage. So he's not one of those guys that's great at any one area. He's just real chill, and he's going to be very consistent.
Yeah, and there's a lot of SEC guys in the top couple. And as far as like first or second round corners, a lot of SEC which is good for Joe Brady would be familiar with them, even though he's offense. But for the Panthers, if they're looking at a corner, you've got Trayvon Diggs, Alabama, AJ Terrell, Clemson, Christian Fulton, and LSU, CJ Henderson, Florida. I mean, it's just SEC is the way to go. And if you're familiar with these players, if you've seen them, you're gonna tend to, I think, gravitate to a player that or that the coach who knows him. And in that regard, I'm just kind of curious where Carolina's going to turn and when, and who's going to be available at pick 7, or are they going to trade down? If they trade down, who will be available? If they decide to go in the second round, pick 38, who's going to be available, or do they move up? Apparently, there's talk about that too. So it's a big question, and I'm glad that we're talking about it.
I'll say this: your head coach. I love your head coach. First off, I'm a Texas Longhorn, and
I'm looking forward to loving him. I really am, because I don't really know too much about, other than what I've learned, read, and viewed. But we haven't seen him yet. But definitely looking forward to it. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I was just getting excited.
It's just funny because like whenever they stepped in and then they're like, you know what? It seemed like they were going to rebuild, right? We're going to just unload and start fresh. And then they go out and start making these huge signings and bringing in and spending money. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. But Matt Rule, and this has been true since he was at Temple, he has always believed that in his coaching ability. And I love that. As a former coach myself, I love it. So his concept is this: we can coach up everybody, and we will coach up everybody. He's a big long-term kind of coach guy. So he wants to get the guys that have the talent that you can't coach. He's a big size, speed guy. And he did the same thing at Temple and at Baylor. So go get these uber athletes, and then we're going to coach them to get better. And so knowing that about him and Joe Brady, who you just talked about, your offensive coordinator from LSU, he has seen the best athletes in the country. And whenever you're talking about the corner position, he has seen who can cover the best wide receivers. Because, I mean, he's had Chase and Justin Jefferson and, all these DJ Chark, all this kind of stuff, whatever. So he's seen these cornerbacks and who are difficult for him. And I think because of that, at pick number 7, I think that there's really 3 solid choices. Every time I do a mock draft, I think I've done 10 already this year. But the idea is this: once I get to 7, Isaiah Simmons, I think, is going to be number 1 on their board. And then I think it's going to be the two cornerbacks. And I think it's going to be Okudah and then CJ Henderson. I really do think that 7 spot is kind of the first place where CJ Henderson, corner from Florida, can come off the board to you guys at Carolina. And I think it'd be a perfect fit.
So do you think that would be too high for a guy like CJ Henderson? I think of, maybe halfway through the first round, he might be picked. If he goes at 7, is that too high? Is that Carolina stretching for a fact that they need a corner and he's the next best guy?
I don't think so, because corner is a premier position.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the most important positions across the NFL with spending, draft capital, whatever, quarterback, then edge, then it's cornerback. And offensive tackle would be right there kind of tied with corners, but it's a premium position. I think he's my number 12 player on the board, my big board. So I personally think that would be a perfect fit. And he's just so clean. He's long, he's athletic, 6'1", 204, ran a 4.39 40, and the dude is explosive as all get out, and he's a super, super hard worker. Squats 545 pounds, 40-inch vertical. I mean, you just keep going down the list.
That's sensational for a corner.
Yeah, I mean, it shows on film, and I mean, he's just. There's something about him whenever you watch him, and you just constantly are just shaking your head because people can never get away from him. They just can't. And he has the best closing speed in the draft. Whenever he pounces, whenever he sees, a dig route or something underneath, he just closes. And so if you're playing against a quarterback that's got a long delivery or anything like that, he's going to have those moments where he goes out there and gets it. And whenever he does get an interception, he had 2 pick sixes his first year as a freshman playing for Florida. I really, really like this kid a lot.
Yeah,
and I think it's a major need for y'all as well.
Yeah, I mean, ball skills, we'll take that, I just want to see how the draft unfolds. Like talking with Detroit at 3, New York Giants at 4, Miami, what are they going to do? There's a lot of what ifs and who's going to be available at 7. So let's, before I get into receivers, because I want to talk about how a wide receiver for Carolina would be really interesting, even though it's not necessarily a huge position of need. But before we get into that, let's talk about linebackers, and particularly Isaiah Simmons, Kenneth Murray. Those guys come to mind. Zach Bond, too. He's more of an edge, outside linebacker. But what? No, the last defensive back that Carolina took in the first round was Chris Gamble.
Ooh.
Which was, what was that, 2002, 3? I don't recall, but that was their last defensive back, corner or safety, taken in the first round. They just don't target that. Granted, now they have a different regime. Maybe they're going to make a change, and we all know that they need to. But Isaiah Simmons, all right, he's the jack of all trades. He's the Swiss Army knife. Talk to me a little bit about what you think that he's going to be as a pro. Is he going to be linebacker, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, safety? Is he just going to be a roving type of defensive weapon?
Right.
What do you expect, or what can you see from him? And is he someone that you think Carolina should target at 7?
Yeah. Yes, I think he should be the number 1 player on your big board, personally. If you look at Marty Herney, your general manager, whenever he was with his first stint before he left and came back, his last first round pick that he made for you guys in 2012 was Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
So he's willing to spend. Yeah. And that was pick 9.
Yeah.
So he's willing to go after, the draft value. Linebacker isn't necessarily a premium position, but we're starting to see that change. We saw Devin White and Devin Bush go early last year. And so you're starting to see the impact that these linebackers can have, and you have a need there for sure. Shaq Thompson, he's great, but you need more. And for you guys, if you drafted Isaiah Simmons, he'd be the start. He'd step in for Luke Kuechly and just take over that spot day 1. Isaiah Simmons is fun to watch his film because, one, you can never figure out where the hell he is. I mean,
Yeah.
he changes. There's one quarter he's got to play 5 different positions.
Is he like a Troy Polamalu with more size and more of a I can play linebacker type of guy, or are we talking? Trying to think of a
He's
comparison.
tough, man. He's Derwin James, but bigger and faster. Derwin
Okay.
James is probably the best thing because this guy could be a starting nickel cornerback and be a
Hmm.
Pro Bowl level, literally year one. He has the tools. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can play all of the linebacker positions. And by the way, you could play him at edge. Like his his
Yeah,
athletic
right.
profile fits as an edge rusher. He is basically Brian Burns,
Hmm.
just 10 pounds lighter.
And
Uh,
he can cover.
and he can cover.
And he can
And he's
cover.
faster than Brian Burns. You remember how we talked about how fast Brian Burns was? This
Yeah.
guy ran a 4.39, and
Yes.
Isaiah Simmons fits every team. There is not one team in the NFL that will not have a top 10 grade on Isaiah Simmons. I can guarantee you, because one, the intangibles are great, but he does everything. He had 262 snaps this year from the D-line position. like
Yeah.
where he
He's not.
lined up to
He's not going to
blitz.
come off the field.
No, he can't. So I really do think, like, if the football gods gave us what we deserve and what we need,
Mhm.
Isaiah Simmons would be there at 7. I'm not a Panthers guy,
Right.
but I love Kuechly and I do like Matt Rule, and I would love to see this. And again, go back to the premium that Matt Rule puts on these height, weight, speed guys, and then he's got to coach them up. There's
Yeah.
nobody that fits that bill more than Isaiah Simmons.
Nice. So I mean, I'm just drooling over the possibility. I think maybe if the Giants pass on him at 4 and they take an offensive tackle, he might be there at 7. Miami, I suppose, could go that way, but wouldn't they take a quarterback? I don't know.
It should.
We'll see. All right, so
They
I want to
should.
talk about wide receiver here, because let's just say, for example, the Panthers go and they pretty much will have their pick of the wide receivers, I believe. What if they took a wide receiver to go along with DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel is on a contract year? There's talk about him not being re-signed.
Yeah.
They could potentially trade him as a draft day trade, get a pick for him, hopefully maybe a second round pick. That might be a little bit too high, but what if they went wide receiver here? Could they maybe just light up their offense and say, forget about defense for a year? Let me ask you this. Which wide receiver out of, you've got your Jerry Jeudy and you've got your CeeDee Lamb, of course, Henry Ruggs. You can throw in Denzel Mims. What wide receiver do you think is the top receivers in this class, and who might be a good fit for Carolina? And do you see that as a possibility, or at 7, or possibly if they traded down, let's say maybe they traded with Jacksonville or Oakland, or Oakland. I did it again. Las Vegas, and they moved down to 12. Is that a possibility? Then again, if the Raiders were to move up, they might take a receiver on their own. But I'll stop talking.
No.
Tell me about the wide receivers and which ones you like.
It's been really documented and overstated probably how great of a wide receiver class this is. Mm-hmm. And they're not doing the wide receiver class justice, because it's better than that. Every single time I go back and watch a wide receiver, a deep round guy, I'm just like, man, I want to put a 3rd round grade on this kid. Mm-hmm. But I already have 20 3rd round grades on wide receivers. And so, it's just like you're scratching your head so much. But this is what the college and high schools are producing now. Everybody wants to play receiver. My son, starting cornerback on varsity as a sophomore, all he wants to do is play wide receiver. Right. And so he's like, I want to play wide receiver. I want to play wide receiver. I want to play. And I'm like, dude, you can't catch. Right. You're starting corner. You'll make more money in the NFL. Anyway, he's not going to the NFL. But anyway, these wide receivers are special. The top 3 for me: CeeDee Lamb, Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy. And it's, what is your flavor? Now, if we step into the personnel that the Carolina Panthers have, you just paid a lot of money to Bridgewater. And if you are planning to move forward with him, then I'll be honest with you. The signing of the Jets wide receiver, I don't get it. Still don't get it to this day, Robbie Anderson. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is a deep ball thrower. I don't think he's got the arm for it. And you go get this huge deep ball guy. So you already got that. So I'm taking Henry Ruggs out of the equation. I don't think that makes sense for you guys. I love Ruggs. CD Lamb and Jerry Jeudy both fit exactly what you want to do. CD Lamb is a guy that doesn't have to be open, if that makes sense.
Yep.
He's not a huge separation guy. And once he gets the ball, it doesn't make sense what he can do, even though he doesn't weigh 200 pounds. You're talking of a George Kittle mindset of running over and around and through people. He's the definition of yards after the catch guy. He averaged 11 full yards after the catch, which was 7th best in the entire country in the NCAA. So he catches everything. Ultimate competitor. Again, I'm a Longhorn. CD Lamb from Oklahoma is my number 1 wide receiver in this class. That hurts. hurts bad on the inside. But love CD Lamb. And then you're talking Jerry Jeudy, the ultimate route runner. Day one will be a top 3 route runner in the NFL. No questions asked.
So the last prospect that I was told was route runner right out of the gate, can do it all, was Odell Beckham. Is he Odell Beckham if he's on the right team, the right quarterback? So what are we looking for here?
No, he's not Odell Beckham. I think he's a lot more Adam Thielen, but with more athleticism, because he is a guy that creates space, runs great routes, good hands, not great hands. He had 7 drops this year. So he had an 8.3% drop rate on catchable targets from Pro Football Focus. So he's not that guy. And he's not a yards after the catch guy. He averaged 7.8, which is good. But he's not the type of guy like CD Lamb that's going to take it to the house all the time and shoot people out of their shoes. No, he is a guy. He is a first down machine. He keeps drives going. He sustains those. So again, you're talking about Teddy Bridgewater. He's not going to throw it more than 15 to 20 yards very often. He can, but it's not his specialty. He can throw the slants. He can throw the outs. He can do all that better than anybody. So why not get him a guy that runs those routes better than anybody? It is a perfect fit. I do think Matt Rule's going to throw his trump card down and go defense, but it would be nice. I would not be mad at all if you guys went wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting take, and it's one that we're at the point where we've mock draft ourselves out of things, and we're just talking about whatever is a possibility. And when you have such a talent like that, you kind of have to think about that. Well, what happens if Carolina takes a wide receiver at 7? If they trade down to 12 or 20 or 19, is there a receiver that they could potentially target? So it's a talking point. I do want to talk defense, and before I get into Chase Young and some of these others, Gross Matos, I want to talk about the defensive tackles, because that seems to be an area that Carolina has interest in as well, with Derek Brown leading the way. You've got Javon Kinlaw, Jordan Elliott, Raekwon Davis, Ross Blacklock. Should we be concerned about Derek Brown and his semi-poor combine showing? Do we worry about that? Is the guy just a mauler, and we're going to see how he does on Sundays? What's your plan there with?
I love Derek Brown. I can't. There are players, whenever you're filling out these draft profiles and stuff, and like I said, I commit to doing at least 3 full game films. I don't believe in highlights. I think that they tell a lie on who the player is, whatever. But there's some players that you get to and you watch them and you're just like, gosh, I still have to watch one more on this player. This is boring. I don't like it. There's nothing really to watch. I already know who he is. All right, let's finish it. Then there's Derek Brown, where it's, oh my gosh, how can I watch? Where's his high school film? Like, I want to see every play this guy has ever played. He is power and violence in this 6'5", 326 body. And the best thing about Derek Brown is this. You can talk about combine and the underwear Olympics all you want, and I think it plays a role. But when you watch Derek Brown line up against NFL caliber players like LSU, who has 2 offensive guards that are going to get drafted this year, and make them not want to play football anymore. They both were done with that game by halftime, and he kept kicking their rear end. This is a guy that is a better football player than he is defensive tackle, and he's got so much anger in his heart. Like he
Hmm.
suplexes people multiple times a game. Like he
Yeah.
is just mean. I really really like this kid a lot. I 7's a good spot for him, but the Matt Rule kind of rule, if you will,
Uh-huh.
is the athletic profile, and he does not have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what you talked about too, is targeting those guys. And we have to wonder, is Marty Herney making these calls? Is
Mm-hmm.
Rule making these calls? Is it a combination of the two? Is David Tepper, the owner, making some of these calls?
Do you
Not,
love Tepper?
you know what? When he first came on board, everyone was like, "Oh, David Pepper, he's going to come in. He has this aura, this mystique about him, this Jerry Jones way about him, how he wants to be around the team but not act like Jerry Jones." Um, and then he's making these questionable decisions. He's saying these things about Cam Newton. He's not really saying the truth, but he's not lying. That kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. But you know what? I'm a fan of the team, and I'm gonna go. I'm an optimist, so I'm
I
gonna
like
go
it.
with. I'm going to go with Matt Rule because that's who he selected. That's who he wants. That's who he wants to be in place as the head coach. I want to go with all of his decisions that he makes because I'm an optimist that there's a reason for why he's making these calls and these plays and these hires.
And that's
So
also how I know you're not a Browns fan. The fact that you're an optimist. So
yeah, you gotta feel for that. But anyhow, so yeah, Derek Brown, Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina. Is he someone that you think is someone who can be a first round? A lot of people are talking about him in the first round. You give him a first round grade?
yeah, he's going in the first round. Penetrating defensive tackles that have pass rush upside, they're at a premium. I mean, we just saw the 49ers trade one of the best ones to Forrest Buckner for the 13th overall pick,
Yep.
and there's a need in that. You look at last year's draft class with Quentin Williams going number 3 overall. They're just rare. They are rare. Now, Javon Kinlaw, he'll be every single fan's favorite player and worst player the same game. He's very up and down, definition of inconsistent. A lot of bad weight. He had to lose 40 pounds before this season because he just blew up. So, discipline, that's an issue, but you got to love his story. His personal story is amazing. Formerly homeless, him and his mom,
Hmm.
problems with money and lack of food in college, and there's all kinds of stuff. His story is beautiful, and you want to root for this guy, and the upside is there, but he is the definition of a high risk high reward type of player in the first round if all
Yeah.
goes well. And if you got a good coaching staff that's going to support him, then I think you're talking all pro level defensive tackle. But he's also one of those guys, kind of like a Malik McDowell, that could possibly be out of the league in a year or two as well. So very, very risky. I love the kid. If he goes to the 49ers, I'm getting a jersey day one. But you got to be honest and say, there's some questions here.
Gotcha. And we haven't talked about defensive end yet here, edge rushers. Now's the time I want to do that, even though Chase Young is going to be gone, most likely at 2, perhaps
You
3.
sound bitter. You sound bitter.
Well, I mean, when you watch the kid play,
Yeah.
he's very electric. Um, and obviously it shows on the field. Talk a little bit about Chase Young. Is he like I don't want to say a generational type of defensive end, maybe a once every 5 years type of guy, would you say? And who would you compare him to? And what type of defense do you think would be a best fit for him?
So my player comparison for Chase Young was Aldon Smith, but with more power. He has one of the best speed rush to bend ratios I have ever seen, ever graded
Like
on an
Dwight
edge
Freeney?
player. Yeah, Freeney was able to generate a lot of success with his hands. He was like a freaking ninja. His arms, what he was able to do was great. So he does. Chase Young doesn't really have that. It just looks like people are playing in sand whenever they're trying to block Chase Young. They cannot get to where he is going fast enough. And so it just speed rush galore. You look at and that's what separates him. Now, you look at Nick Bosa, who came out, number 2 pick last year, rookie
Yeah,
of the year, all those different things. Nick Bosa is a much more complete player. Chase Young is a much better pass rusher.
sure. I would agree
So
with that. And I'm a huge fan of Nick Bosa. I have nothing bad to say about the 49ers, by the way, John.
I
I
appreciate that. I
I was
appreciate
pulling
that.
for him in the Super Bowl. Um,
Oh, that
but
was rough, man. Oh,
yeah,
it
that
took me
fourth
back.
quarter, that 3rd and 15. All right, I don't want to. I'm sure we're probably bringing up rug burns here.
Yeah, it's all right.
But anyway, huge fan of Nick Bosa. But yeah, I totally get that. I Nick Bosa is a guy who's multi-talented in terms of what he can do on the field. And you look at Chase Young, yes, he's good. He can get to the quarterback. What else can he do? Can he run stop? Is he going to be like that with whichever team he goes to? So yeah, I mean I like that take. What about the defensive end from Penn State, Yetur Gross-Matos, and also the guy from Wisconsin, Zach Bond? What's your take on him? Are they a little bit later in the first round?
No, I think Uter is going to go early. A lot of people are really high on Caleb on Chasen, but I don't see it. I'm really not a Chasen fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got Joe Brady from LSU there, but he's just a guy that just hasn't done anything. His production and tape is awful. His tape was kind of fun to watch just because he gets pancaked so often in pass rush. And anytime he goes up against an NFL caliber tackle, he is just, you're never going to see him the whole game. But Yetur Gross-Matos, he's awesome. Again, talking about, Javon Kinlaw, this huge home run swing, boomer bust pick. Gross-Matos is the definition of a double. He is a super high floor, low ceiling player that's just going to be a starter. He's never going to be an all-pro player, but he's a guy that's going to go to the pro, that could be a Pro Bowl player every other year type of a guy. And so he can do everything. He's very, very slippery. You brought up Dwight Freeney earlier. He's not that caliber, but he always has good contact with the tackle and gets into their body and slips off. It's really weird how he does it, and he does it on the left and right side against left and right tackles, the same game over and over again. But yeah, really big fan of him, and I think he is one of those guys, Gross-Matos, that fits every single scheme in the NFL. He can do it all, 3-4, 4-3. He's 6'5", 265, but he could add weight or lose weight. So depending on what position you want him to go to, he's going to be able to do all of those.
And you got to think about teams that are looking for that. There's Dallas. I can see New England perhaps even going in that direction. Detroit.
And this is a weak,
even though they're at 3,
class.
but if they trade down, Detroit trades down. That could be a target for them. So there's a lot. But all right, you know what? We've talked for 50-something minutes. We haven't even mentioned running backs yet, and I've kind of shied away from that because it's not really a huge target for Carolina with McCaffrey on board, Mr. Two Positions.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way.
Oh yes, thank you. Thanks to Christian for doing what he does. The Carolina fandom, we love Christian McCaffrey, and we want him to be here as long as possible. He seems like a really great guy on and off the field. He's a leader. I think now that he's going to be the face of the franchise, with Cam Newton not there anymore, I think that also perhaps was part of the decision making. With Matt Rule also coming on board, I mean, it was just kind of just time. Anyway, I want to talk about the running backs because we can't not talk about them. And there's people who also are in dynasty leagues and fantasy leagues who want to know who's your top running back and what's the difference between the top 4 or 5 guys. Is there one that stands out, or is there 2 that stands out, 3 or 4, and then what's the level in between for some of those? But I know you have DeAndre Swift as your top running back. Let's talk a little bit about him and why that's the case, as well as J.K. Dobbins too.
Yeah, and so I love Swift. He has it all. There's no flaws to his game. So you're talking about a guy that's a high impact runner. He's got great speed, and it shows on film. Very, very elusive. He's great in pass protection. He can catch out of the backfield. He doesn't have fumbling issues. He literally does everything. And no matter, the one thing that I love most about his game, is he is always moving forward. He's not a dancer. That's not what he is. He just goes forward. And so he's one of those guys that's going to have a very, very high yards per carry, no matter what team he goes to, because he doesn't waste time and he has no negative plays. And as you know, coaches are going to love that, because if you want a 3rd and 1 running back, he's your guy. He's a guy that you can leave on the field for all 4 plays. He could be used in special teams as well. Very, very good. He's only had 3 drops in his entire college career. 0 this year. Great pass catcher. He just does it all. He averaged 6.6 yards per carry throughout his college career. And if you remember, man, he forced himself into playing time when Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were both on the roster in the national championship. The last drive of the game, DeAndre Swift was in there, not those 2 guys. Which they got some criticism, the Georgia coaching staff, but that's a testament to how good this kid was when he was a freshman.
Sure.
He's a talented kid.
That says a lot. And next on your rankings there after Swift, well, actually, is there a comparison that you can make for Swift at all?
Yeah, the running style, man, the whole time in the back of my head was just screaming Pierre Thomas, and the athletic profile fits that, but he has so much more upside. But that kind of banger mentality, very quick, nice hips, can do it all. And then he's just got so much upside with it, though. But that style of runner and athletic profile just was screaming the whole time.
Okay. That's an interesting comparison. I mean, Pierre Thomas was outstanding. I remember, he being on a couple of my fantasy teams back, what was it, almost 10 years ago or so?
Yeah, with the Saints.
With the Saints, right? But that's an interesting comparison. I haven't heard of that one. All right, moving forward, J.K. Dobbins ahead of Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people have Taylor as their number 1. How come you've got him a little bit lower?
These next 3 guys I have in the same tier. So I have DeAndre Swift in the tier by himself, the top guy. Then I have J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, now, these 3 guys, they all do something very, very well, and they all have huge question marks or weaknesses in their game. Okay. So J.K. Dobbins, man, 5'9", 209, just runs like his game reminds me so much of Emmitt Smith's style, with his behind his shoulder pads, both hands on the ball, and just like fighting his way through holes that he doesn't belong trying to go through. Awesome jump cut. It's great at what he does. Now, there are some issues in this game because he's a guy that's not very active in the passing game at all. You don't ever see him pass block at all. Everything that he does in the passing game is faking, like the little zone read pass, whatever. Like, you don't ever see him do that. And one of the problems in the NFL that a lot of people don't understand, rookie running backs don't see the field, not because they can't run, but because they can't pass protect. Right. You get a quarterback hit, you mess up a scheme, you don't pick up a blitz, you stay on the sidelines.
Especially in New England.
Yeah, especially in New England. That's right.
And ball security.
Now, I will say this, though, and, this is a big thing with Joe Brady. He believes in 5-man protection, and he does not keep in. He'll chip block sometimes. But even their tight end, Thaddeus Moss, you go through all the LSU game tape that, man, you had to watch so much LSU this year just because all the prospects they were putting out. But Thaddeus Moss cannot block. So he is a offensive coach that just does not value pass protection from skill position players. So somebody like J.K. Dobbins, I don't think that you're going to get him because you have McCaffrey obviously.
Sure.
But it's going to take an offensive system like that to want J.K. Dobbins there.
And if you could just talk a little bit about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's a lot of people who really like him. I'm one of them. I have him, what do I have him? 4th, I believe. You have him 5th, but I really like him. I like his ability. He's got, in my opinion, he's I made this really early, and a lot of people are saying this, but Maurice Jones-Drew in that, he's a receiving type of back, but he can also run, and he's got good vision, and he has good elusive running style. What's your take on him? Is there a particular system that you think he would be best at? I'm thinking maybe Kansas City. Is that possible?
It is possible. I feel like they value explosiveness much more
Mm-hmm.
than what Clyde brings. And again, these two players, we just talked about J.K. Dobbins and now Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're very very similar styles. 5'7", 207, shorter, not a top end speed guy, but a compact runner with great vision and great balance. Again, was never asked to really pass protect in the LSU system. He can catch out of the backfield. But he's a guy that just forces missed tackles, not by juking people out. He'll set a tackler up, then run through the arm tackle. So he is an arm tackle breaker. That's just kind of what he does. And I really like that guy. I really, really do. I think he fits much more with kind of the power play action fake run game than most zone teams. So I don't think zone teams would really like him a lot. Again, going back to like the Raiders, I think that would be a fit. Some of that kind of stuff. Now, Jonathan Taylor, and you brought him up earlier, and I wanted to hit on why I love and why I hate Jonathan Taylor. He is probably the best zone system running back to come out of the NFL or out of college in a decade. He could do zone running plays so well. I mean, 3 straight years of almost 2,000 yards, 1,900 plus yards rushing 3 straight years in a row. But here's the problem. He can't catch, and he has 15 lost fumbles in his time in college. And you look at somebody like Matt Breida for the 49ers, who I love. He had 2 games where he fumbled twice. He never played again. All throughout the playoffs, even in the Super Bowl, Kyle Shanahan would not allow him to touch the ball again. So how do you put somebody like this? Again, you talked about New England with fumbling issues. How do you spend a high premium draft pick on somebody like Jonathan Taylor when he just fumbles for 4 straight years and he never fixed it?
Yeah. And I was familiar with Taylor's ball security issues. He had 18 fumbles, 15 lost in his career. And even though the stats will show that he kind of corrected that a little bit in his last year, but it's still a concern. I agree with you there. Well, tell you what, we've gone through a lot of these prospects, and I appreciate you coming on. We got a little bit of time left. One, tell us again where we can find your draft book, your rankings and such, and also if we want to listen to your podcast, where we can get that as well.
Yeah. So I'm most active on Twitter, at JL_Chapman, CHAPMAN. So I do a lot of film clips and editing stuff of prospects and games and whatever else. So that's the best place to get me on Twitter. If you want the draft book and the big board and all the rankings and all that stuff, best place to get that, patreon.com, type in 49ers Rush Podcast and just subscribe there. It's just $8. And then you get access to everything that's on there. I think I have like over 100 videos breaking down film and whatever on there. So that's there. If you're a big podcast fan, Eat Sleep Fantasy. So I do own and host a fantasy podcast where we joke around a whole bunch and just talk fantasy. We are not a serious podcast, but we just joke a lot. But we do talk a lot of fantasy. And if you're our 49ers fan or know of one, please tell them the 49ers Rush Podcast. Recording 2 to 4 times a week, depending on the year. And it's very similar to yours. Just a better football team.
I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
I don't want to let you go here without asking you about what you think the 49ers are going to do with their picks in the first round. Let's just talk about the first round. What do you want? Where do you think they should go? This is the Carolina show, but you know what? We're ending it, and I want to give you your time here. What do you want to see from them? What's the biggest need?
The biggest need, they don't really have a lot, to be honest with you. The roster is pretty solid, but if there's one of the elite wide receivers is available at 13, I would love to see that. Or, again, CJ Henderson, the the cornerback. The 49ers have a good cornerback base now, but Sherman's in the last year of his deal. And then outside of that, there's not really as much. So cornerback depth would be huge, or an offensive tackle. So they're picking at 13. They're going to have to see who falls. And they don't have a pick for the second, third, or fourth round. So they're going to have to trade back somewhere. But they have the 13th pick and 31st pick in the first round. And they'll have to do some type of trade to get some more picks. But really hoping they get some playmakers. I want to see Kyle Shanahan at his best with the best talent around there. And wide receiver would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, yes, it would, especially because Dante Pettis hasn't been exactly the player that we thought he would be. I was high on him. He was one of the busts I had last year in terms of fantasy.
Same, brother.
Man,
same.
Yeah, so we're drinking the same sour Kool-Aid there. But one last question, and it has to do with Christian McCaffrey and his contract, and also what this means for other running backs. Like Joe Mixon is looking for a deal. What is that going to mean? Are we seeing something new here with running backs? It kind of seems like this. A player comes in, a rookie does well. Maybe the second year they do really well. And the third year, they're like, you know what? I'm holding out. I want my money. And you're going to have to pay me, or, I'm going to sit out. And, so you've got these running backs who are looking for their second contract before it's up because they have the leverage. What do you see as far as, going forward, the future? Is this an issue that we're going to have to deal with? Because a lot of teams and GMs say, you know what, we're not paying these running backs. Look at what the Chargers did with Gordon, right?
Yeah.
And Austin Eckler got one heck of a deal, in my opinion, for the team. I'm sure he's happy, but the team got a steal.
They did.
As opposed to, paying big bucks for a running back or a McCaffrey type of contract. What's your take on that? And what are we going to see? Are we going to see some of these contracts just get bigger and bigger, or is McCaffrey the example?
It's weird because there's, like you said, the two schools of thought. We just went through the whole Todd Gurley thing, which Todd Gurley, here's the craziest thing. Okay. First off, I think that McCaffrey is so much better than Todd Gurley. But besides the fact, if Todd Gurley just played out his rookie deal, it wouldn't have changed anything. This is the first year his rookie year is over. Instead, they gave him that huge deal.
Yeah.
And they're paying him $12.5 million to play football for somebody else this year. They're paying him like $7 million next year, and it's going to keep going. Now, the thing that I will say about the McCaffrey deal is you guys put a potential out in there after for the 2023 season. So you guys are locked into Christian McCaffrey through 2022. Now, you added all the back end deals. It's a 6-year deal, which is very, very smart by y'all, because you can get out if that same thing happens like it did to Todd Gurley or to David Johnson or to whomever, right? And it's not going to crush you. It's a lot of money, but I think that the out was huge, and I'm very, very glad once the details came out and I saw that you guys can get out if worse comes to worse. You could save $12 million cap space the last year of the deal. And get out. So I don't think that you're going to be hamstrung for a long time, but McCaffrey's so special. And you have them signed now through the year 29, and that's usually where they hit the wall. When that 29, whenever the running back hits 30, then it's almost done. So I don't know if he can keep getting 400 carries or touches a year, but he's never been injured. He's super bad.
Careful. No, but yes, I agree with you. And if they're going to give it to a guy, he's the kind of guy that I'd like to see, be rewarded with that.
Same.
He plays two positions essentially, and he's just an all-around good guy, team player. Why would you not want to reward that? And I get that. I'm happy that they made that move, and we'll see how it pans out. Hopefully they'll put together a team that can be competitive during his prime years.
Yeah.
So
I hope so
we'll
too,
see.
man.
Well, John, it was a pleasure having you on. I enjoyed coming on your show. I think it was about a year ago. And thank you so much for coming on here on my show. Looking forward to growing this a little bit more. We're just getting started, especially on the YouTube side here. We had the podcast that was up and going, sporadically a little bit last year. But I'm looking forward to doing more here with Carolina Fandom, and I appreciate you coming on as a guest.
Yeah, I love it, man. This is a blast. Always fun.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care, guys.